Welcome back to Bet Boys, your one-stop shop for all your energy drink reviews and performance talks. I'm Brian.
I'm Christian.
And we are, of course, the Bet Boys. Today, we finally got the white whale. The white whale. The guy he's been circumventing the wheel, just slithering away on me for how long? Andrew Behnam, the director of sports performance for University of Virginia baseball. Let's go. If I had an applause meter, I would put it up somewhere, but my stadium pulse is at an all-time high. Andrew, can you take just 2-3 minutes here? Can you give us a chance, get the audience to know you, all three of our listeners? Actually, we're up to 100. I can no longer make that joke. But can you introduce yourself to everybody? I don't think I can do you justice.
No, stop. Andrew Behnam, the sports performance coach for the baseball team at the University of Virginia. I played college baseball, 4 years of it, pitched for 4 years in Philadelphia at a small D3 school, graduate assistant position at Millersville University for 2 years, an intern for 3 months, and then a full-time coach at TCU after that for a year and a half. And then in September of 2022, accepted the job at Elon University. Greatest year of our lives, no doubt about it. One for the ages. And then was there for about a year and accepted the job at Virginia in 2023 in September. So that was a quick little rundown. Been down south, working my way up north back to Philadelphia.
Just slowly inching closer and closer to home.
Not gritty, like some people going to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, we're on a little different path, that's for sure.
I guess before we get too into it, French, do you have a drink today?
I do. I got something similar to last week. I would say I have the best flavor of this drink. I got a little fresh out the freezer, sweating, little berry blast action, ice energy, little berry blast or socks off type of deal. So yeah, this thing is like dripping on me,
Let's
take
go.
that how you want it. But yeah, we got,
Moist.
It is very moist. 160 milligrams of caffeine. You guys already know the deal. I did the mango madness or whatever that flavor I did last week was called. But yeah, picked this up at the Olay grocery store earlier this morning, screaming cold can. Just gonna go ahead and
say, before you do that, I was watching videos on the Bev Boys last week, okay, and just scrolling through the Instagram, right, and I came across a video that you brought up an energy drink, and Brian was like, "That's the elusive drink. I've been to every gym. I've been to every gas station, everywhere. I can't find it, man."
It was
I think that
Gorilla
was
Mine Triple Berry.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Was it the same brand though, right?
This or what do you mean?
Yeah, same brand.
No, this is a same brand that I reviewed last week on the show.
Okay.
There's no shot I can find a Gorilla Mind on this island. I have no doubt of that.
He'd never leave.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually am doing a can that I did last week as well. A different flavor.
Yes.
Screaming cold can. Screaming cold can of the strawberry lemonade 3D energy.
Oof.
Same specs as it was last week. Very simple. 200 milligrams of caffeine. This is a beautiful silver simplistic can. I mean, look at this thing. This is $1.99 for a can. You can't beat it. I went so far, I was like, you know what? I had that 12-pack before. I'm getting another 12-pack for $20. They're just saving me money. It's called investment strategies, people. You guys want to save money and get your caffeine fix? You buy 3D. All right, French, did you pop your top?
I'm about to pop it right now, Brian.
I need you to pop that.
Get it right close to my mic. Oh.
Yeah.
So good.
You like that, Andrew?
Let me get one here.
God, that's crisp.
Oh my God, it's like a hot day in the Caribbean, and I'm vibing in the pool waist deep, and then the waiter just come up and he says, Do you want a little strawberry lemonade? You want a little strawberry lemonade? I see you with the boys. You want to vibe? And I'm just like, you know what, man? Let's vibe. This is an all inclusive. Let's do it. The water's
Yeah,
blue. The smiles are sharp.
that's exactly what I'm going through now. Except for when I go to the beach, they just ask if I want a massage.
Oh, we like that though, right? We like that though.
Anyways, oh,
We do not like that.
yeah.
So it's
So,
a little
Andrew-
bit different, Frenchie. A little bit different.
French, do you want to start with your first one for Andrew? Or you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, let's I'll get it going here. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you was, you've obviously been at TCU, you've been at Elon. You're still like very young in the field, like as far as like you're not like old, but you're already at like a prestigious program, but you've worked under some really well-known and really like respected coaches in the field with like Zach at TCU, Nick at Elon. How has your coaching like style and philosophy changed since you've kind of been at UVA, more so to say like on your own? Like obviously you were in charge of baseball at Elon, but how have you kind of formed your own philosophy, style, and has it like differed from like the guys that you learned under? And how has that experience been?
I think that it has changed because I have matured in my approach. And yeah, I got a little side eye from Brian there. Yeah, I matured a little bit in my approach. Listen, I think that I just talked about this a couple days ago. Like, you don't have to be Billy Badass. Like, if it's not who you are, it's not who you are. The athletes will see right through it. And I think that there's definitely a time and place to, put your foot down, but it's also about being your true self, and the athletes will respect you more in the long run for that. Here's a perfect example. When I was at TCU, I was trying to mimic Zach Dakin, and I was trying to be who he was. But that's not what was best for me, because I'm not Zach. I don't have his personality. I don't have his coaching style. Like, we all have different coaching styles. And so I needed to realize that. I didn't at the time. When I got to Elon, I thought I had to be someone that I wasn't. And then when I got to UVA, I started as someone who I wasn't, and I was like, man, you know what? Like, it's draining trying to be someone you're not. And it's more energizing for them, and it's more energizing for yourself when you're just your true self on the floor, and you actually start to see that, like, you can relax a little bit, and then there's times to put your foot down, but they will respect you in the long run if you're just yourself, if you're authentic self. I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard athletes talk about other coaches, like, man, like, he's an awesome human being, and then when like the lights come on, he's like someone completely different. Like, we just wish that he would be the same person he was outside of the building in the building. And why can't you do that? And so that's one thing I've learned, French, on that side of things, on the maturity level of it, of just the approach and how you handle the athletes.
When you kind of go through that, right? For anyone that doesn't know, like when Andrew was with us at Elon, there was a running joke that he would legitimately black out for an hour while he coached. He has no idea what happened until the next session. But there was a light switch that kind of flicked in you, right? Like, very calm, cool, collected. You were still very calm and cool and collected when it came to them, but it became just, it's not like an alter ego, but it's like kind of like Batman putting on the mask. I could say that, where it's like everything was so like meticulously, like every little small detail. You're looking at a pelvis and the way it slightly tilts on a split squat to influence how they're going, right? Is that still kind of how you do it, or is it more lax in like the general personality form, or are you just bringing the personality through on that, kind of blackout kind of session of like, hey, we're training, we are all in on this. I'm just throwing in a couple more smiles and goofing around and being yourself.
I think it depends on, number one, the coaching staff. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you want to try and balance out the coaching staff, and so yes and no. Yes, Brian. There's still times when I bring that out, but it's like there's also there's also times where here's the other thing too, guys. Like the college landscape is changing, and athletes don't respond to that as well, which is crazy to say because it was only 3 years ago, and they respond to more direct coaching and just being your authentic self. I'm also believed that at this level you have guys who have they've been told their whole lives that they're the best on their team, and they've always been the best player on their team. And so being like positive all the time and hyping them up, that's not going to work either. So there needs to be a little bit of balance. And I wouldn't say I'm who I was at Elon. I've definitely grown since then. And there would be problems if I told you I was the same person I was when I was at Elon. But that approach has molded a little bit in the sense of maybe not more calm or but more like poised. I would say I don't really know how to put it. Like I'm not as much of a um, like yes, the detail is still there. The detail in the coaching is still there, and understanding movement and cueing effectively is still at the priority, but it's not so much spastic is a good word to describe it. It's not so much in a spastic way. The detail is still there, the intent of coaching is still there, but it's more even keeled is a
Okay.
good way to put it. So
I see French formulating a thought.
Yeah. I feel like that's it's tough because when you first get into the field, I think most people do end up kind of mimicking whoever they first intern under because that's kind of all they know, and like they see this person that they're hopefully learning from, and you're like, oh, like this is how you do it, and then hopefully as you get older, you kind of form that own your own
Voice.
identity, ideally, yeah.
and the
And
other
I
thing, go ahead, French. Sorry.
no, like I think the other thing is like sometimes I think especially like some sports more than others, like certain coaching types get looked at as better and worse regardless of that's if that's like who that person truly is or if they're just putting on a front, and that can kind of pressure people into, you know, it's easy to look at a guy who's always like barking cues and is just talking, yelling nonstop for the whole session because it's like, oh well, he's doing something, so he's probably like that's probably a good thing, right? Even though they may not understand. And so like I think that gets kind of lost in the sauce. And how are you going to be able to like separate the signal from the noise? But we also don't want to go too far the other way and just like stand there like a mute the whole time. So it's tough.
I had a coach tell me one time, ABC, always be coaching, and I took that as your voice always needed to be on. So when I was at Elon, when I was at TCU, it was ABC, always be coaching, and that is something that has changed because the more I think about it, I actually had an athlete check me, and I needed it because I was talking so much. He was like, "Hey, I've been doing this for 2 years now. I know what I'm doing. Like you can back off a little bit." And I was like, "Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. My bad, man. Like I'm gonna cue you as necessary, and it's it's not talking, it's coaching, but knowing knowing when to say what you want to say is coaching." Um,
I was gonna say, do you think like at this point in your career, you find a little bit more value in just taking a step back and just observing everything, especially when it's like just say you in the session. It's not it's different obviously now in the situation that you're in where you don't have, 8 or 9 interns kind of floating around to expand your reach. Do you find more value in being that person who takes a far step back, just sees everything going on and allowing yourself a chance to breathe and essentially like you said, like interject when you need to versus feeling the necessity to like
Yeah.
always having a cue for somebody?
First of all, when I was at Elon, Brian said 7 to 8 interns. I had 4 to 5 of my best friends helping me with baseball every session. We had a speed coach. We had 3 guys in the weight room helping with that development. It was like I had a whole army. It wasn't me. It was us in with baseball. It was a whole army of people, and it was awesome. So yeah, I don't have that help now, but that's to allude to what you said, Brian. That is how I would explain it versus when I was at Elon. It's more so now, French, about your question. How have you matured in your approach? What's different? I've learned to take a step back and talk when necessary, not talk for the sake of talking. That's probably to answer your question 10 minutes ago. Learning when to take a step back, learning when to put your foot forward, and learning when to talk to be efficient, not talk to make noise. Simple, period, end of story. That's what it comes down to for me. So
The other thing, like at your level too, that I think is becoming far more evident, especially in the last year or two with NIL and how that's going, is there's almost like a power dynamic shift, in some way, shape, or form, to where it's less for the coaches. It's shifted more towards the athletes, and some may argue that that's great. Some may argue that it becomes more difficult to work with. Do you find that it's become more like a professional setting where it's more peer to peer than it is an athlete to coach, like staggered, like that ground is more even? And if it is, like what changes have you kind of made, like coaching and interacting with a lot of the players inside, a weight room or on the field, like during a training session? Like, does that affect everything?
well, that's just part of it. Is the a great way to put it, Brian, is the dynamics are changing and it's more even leveled because of the landscape of college athletics the way it is now, and so it changes the way that you coach. Um, especially in the baseball world, French. I don't know if you deal with some of this stuff, but I have guys that go to facilities all the time and train, and they're going to other outside sources, and so I'm trying to I am trying to collaborate and work with the athlete so that they can get what's best for their development, but they're seeing on Instagram, they're seeing on other facilities, what am I doing? This is what they're doing, and you have to have a pulse on that stuff. And so that affects the coaching as well because they're going to all these different places, and you just have to have a pulse on it and understand what they're doing so you can kind of meet them halfway. I don't know if it's like that at the pro level, French, at all.
Yeah, I think, and it's tough for me to know because I'm down here where it all starts. I know at like the higher levels, obviously. I mean, pro baseball is interesting because you have them, and the season's so long, and then everyone just goes home. And obviously, like we would like everyone to like do our stuff, but some guys are going to go to like different facilities, and that's I'm not even going to say that's bad because at least they're training.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just more about like communicating, trying to like, and most of those people that run those facilities where they're getting a lot of pro guys are willing to kind of like communicate so that like you kind of know what your guys are doing. It's a little bit different down here just because they haven't gotten to that level yet, but we do our best to kind of like at least check in on them. I'm like, okay, like it's kind of the running joke in college. Like you make your winter packet and your summer packet, and you're like, yeah, like no one's gonna do this, but I gotta make it anyway. Um, it's like that comes to my mind, but I'm like, hey, like even if you don't do this, like do something. Like you shouldn't come back in worse shape than you left. Like you should come back in at least the same shape. So I think it comes down to like having, like you said, like having a pulse on it is probably the best way to put it, and then you can kind of adjust from there.
I have a flight scheduled that I'm going to go out and visit one of these facilities because one of our players are training there, just so I can see what they're doing and take some of it back with us at Virginia. So it's part of my responsibility to have a pulse on it. And Brian, to answer your question, that's what's different about it is the coaching that's changed and how you approach the athlete because the landscape of athletics has changed, and so it's the dynamics are the same. It's peer to peer now, and you need to meet them halfway and have a pulse on what they're doing outside of the facility.
I mean, with that, like, how have you had to kind of adjust your programming? Like, anyone knows that, especially with foundational level athletes too. And French and we've talked about this 1,000 times. It's like, even when they're a top tier athlete in their sport at the highest level, like, how truly advanced are they inside the weight room? Right. Like, that's always been an argument, but how have you kind of had to adjust programming to, that, especially at your level, that could make or break someone's decision to stay with the transfer portal if they're being offered X amount of dollars going somewhere else or wanting to stay here? Like, are you making adjustments in what you're programming to make sure that, hey, we'll give you the flashy stuff that you think is going to be the thing, but we're still going to do the meat and potatoes that truly matters and makes a difference? Like, what have you had to do inside the AB program to make sure that it continues to be exactly what they need, while, I guess, kind of serving the I don't want to say eyewash, but the eyewash purpose of, we're gonna give you that cool stuff that you'll play with we'll radar gun some throws and throw you on a Proteus or whatever.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Is the last 2 years? That question sums up the last 2 years, and what have I done programming wise to change and adjust to this landscape? And the answer to that question is, I think that it came from an educational piece of the biggest thing is pitchers. The pitchers are the biggest piece because it's so technical, and these facilities are revolved around mostly pitching. There's some aspects that are hitting, but it's mostly pitching, and so it comes from doing things like evaluations. We have some of the people on our staff will give evaluations for our guys, assessments, all that stuff. You hear the word assessment, and that could mean a million things, but like some of our guys will get assessments, and we've actually had companies come in and do assessments on some of our guys, and then that will help dictate the program. But at the same time, it's still not an individualized program. I physically do not have enough time in the day to give 35 to 40 different programs. And so the model, Brian, that we've learned, and I say we because being under the same coaching tree of foundation plus, advanced, all that stuff, that remains the same. And it's educating guys on why you need to be in this program. How is this going to affect your play? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. They probably don't care about the weight room. They want to know how it's going to make them better for the field. That's what it boils down to. How is this going to make me better? And so when you can educate them, not on, well, you're a wide ISA guy or a narrow ISA guy. No. How is this going to help me perform better on the field? And so when you construct it like that and you educate them, that's why you're in this program. It's going to help you do this on the field. Those conversations start.
Okay. I guess, like, when you're looking at it from the differences, obviously you have your foundation plus, advanced plus card. You have your pitchers and you have your position players, right? That's kind of like your split for your buckets, correct? Or are you diving into, you might be foundation, but you're force dominant. So maybe I shift you around and you have a slight change there. Are you doing things like that? And if so, like, what does that look like? Or are you just saying, hey, you're a foundation guy, you still have so much, meat left on the bone that we got to start chewing on when it comes to just general strength. That's where you're going to get it, and we're just going to chase it. Like, what does that really look like if we kind of like break it down for you?
Yeah. So it comes down to the qualities of, hey, who's force dominant, what qualities do people need, And then honestly, some of the information that I get is from the force plates. So the force plates will dictate a lot of that stuff. The force plates are becoming more and more popular in performance. And I see it now. When you're watching videos and stuff on Instagram and you visit these different facilities, like everyone's got a force plate now. I didn't remember, maybe I'm wrong, guys, but I don't remember that being the case 3 years ago.
No.
So
They were a very expensive jump mat 3 years ago.
correct, and now everyone's got them, and so will it phase out? I don't know, but like again, I remember you on a different podcast, you guys were talking about the fad of like cold tubs. Like they're in season right now, and what will happen with them? No one knows. So force plates are the big thing right now. I have to have a pulse on that. We are fortunate that we have Hawken dynamic force plates at our facility in our weight room, and there's a couple different metrics that we use to track with pitchers and position guys. Things like breaking velocity, things like jump momentum, breaking RFD. All of those qualities are kind of taken into account, and then the program is kind of divvied off based on how can we get some of these numbers better. At the end of the day, there's a strong correlation to strength with exit velocity. So it's like nowadays, especially with our new staff, we're very fortunate. We have some great guys in our building now. We hired the Coach Pollard from Duke, and their philosophy is exit velocity. Hit the ball far, and so guys need to be strong when they do that. And nowadays, pitching is all about what number can you put on the radar gun, and so trying to manipulate some of those qualities in the program are what we try and do.
I guess in some of those raw terms, right? When we start to think about like the number on the radar gun, right? Everyone gets very concerned. Can you throw 95 plus? Can you get to triple digits on a miles per hour coming out of the hand, right? How much have you kind of seen that differentiate over the past couple of years from, hey, we need you to have really good placement, even if you're throwing 93, to I just need you to throw 98 to 101, and it's going to scare somebody to either have to take a swing or step out of the box.
Put simply, Brian, I just had a conversation with a scout last week, and we were talking about the way that things were going now with baseball, and he was talking about how one of the pitchers he saw, high school athlete, threw the ball 97 miles an hour in one of his bullpens, and I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, he's potentially get drafted, all this stuff. 97, wow. Where did it go? Well, it was up and out to the left, hit the backstop. And like, all right, okay.
So it's definitely moved towards like we just want the rawest, like most pure, straight up output.
The mindset is if he can throw the ball hard, we'll teach him to pitch. I think French. If you want, I just don't. It's so hard to say because there are a ton of guys. I just watched a game last night, the College World Series game. There was a pitcher that threw a complete game shutout in the College World Series Game 1 finals. Career high, 9 innings. The longest he's ever gone. Career high, 4 walks. That's unheard of. Unheard of. The most walks you've ever given up is 4 in one outing. It's unheard of.
Especially through 9 innings.
9 innings, correct.
I mean, that's a lot for a pitcher to have to go through, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, now when you see that from like a performance coach standpoint, are you kind of watching those games like that and you're like, all right, what are they doing to make that athlete robust enough to withstand 9 innings completely?
It goes through my head all the time. Is it more conditioning? Is it more mobility after he throws? What is he doing in his start to allow him to be able to do that? It and I think the at the end of the day, it always goes back to, well, he's built up his arm enough to throw that many pitches. The weight room is general. I just gave a talk last night at a university. They had a camp and they had a strength and conditioning talk. And I just spoke for a couple minutes and I said, look, I get the ever ending question, Coach, what can I do in the weight room to throw harder? And unfortunately, the answer to that question is nothing. The weight room is general. All we're doing in the weight room is we're building your capacity to throw harder. Doesn't mean you will. Like I have examples of guys who can't even lift their body weight, but they throw the ball 98 miles an hour. And I have examples of guys who can lift every weight in the gym and throw the ball 86. Because what does it come down to? It comes down to how well can you efficiently transfer energy from your foot all the way to your fingertips if you're throwing, and from the ground all the way to your wrists into the bat when you're swinging a bat. That's what it comes down to, period, end of story. So the weight room will help you become more robust and resilient. And unfortunately, the sad truth is that nothing will directly correlate to you throwing a ball harder. It's about how well you efficiently transfer energy.
Do you think that they're like down the line, there's going to be some way to influence that number, right? Like if we think about like the laws of like dynamic correspondence or like dynamic systems theory, in theory, you can match the velocity, the magnitude, the musculature that's used, etc., all the way through. Like if you can mimic it enough with the same, speeds, the same forces, do you think that at some point you'll be able to figure out a way to essentially like at least have a correlation between something to influence that?
I hope so. I do. I just think we're so far away from it. I mean, shoot, we have a force plate mound in our facility, and the thing spits out 80 different numbers when a guy throws one pitch. Where his force is going to the third base side, to the first base side, how long is he holding force when he throws, at what point is he rotating. It throws out all these different numbers, and we still don't know 50% of what those numbers mean and how they directly correlate to throwing a baseball. So
I feel like at a certain point too, like pitching strategy is a lot like a jump strategy. You can get the same exact numbers, but it looks completely different on how it actually performs. So it's so tough when it's like you're trying to say this one thing will lead to this. It's like, well, it could lead to that when it's this type of athlete who throws this way. But there's 6 to 7 to 8 different types of pitchers when they actually throw, right? Is it a really quick release? Is it a really long release? Are they blocking way out? Are they a more wiry guy? Are they a more like stocky build? Like it changes so much, right? I look back to some of the guys that when you were at Elon, what you're training, and it's like we got a shorter pitcher who's really stocky but throws hard, and then you have a tall kind of more wiry athlete that throws just as hard, but the placement's different based off of how they're like just anatomically shaped. And it's like in an ideal world, you have a mold that you try to fit, but it's just never going to be like that.
the another question I'm always asking myself is, okay, if you have an elastic athlete or if you have a force dominant athlete, are you giving them a program that suits the strength, or are you giving them a program that suits the weakness? And like if it's a force dominant athlete, that's what they're really good at. Are you going to enhance that, or are you going to try and drive up other qualities? You know, so
I guess do you think that that kind of like changes depending on your level and the level of their like true athletic development? Like for you, when you get somebody, it's a little bit different than if someone were to come in at a D2 level where they're like, hey, let's just try and make you a better athlete in general. So we'll address the I guess the worst quality that you have versus like at your level, it's like even if they are truly, foundational level athlete and haven't lifted much in the weight room, do you just shift that perspective and say, hey, we need to double down on what you're really good at because we need you to be good right now because as you move up in these levels, your wins matter more. You're under more optics. You're seeing all this stuff. It's like, I need you to be able to pitch and I need you to be able to pitch well right now.
I mean, I know I go back to it, but I don't know the next time I'm going to have an athlete for 4 years. So And I can tell you I'll have more athletes for one than I'll have for four because of the transfer portal. And so it's about keeping guys healthy because they came to UVA to do one thing, to throw a baseball. And so yes, I am not training passively, but I'm also keeping in mind that this kid is a fifth year. He's 22 years old to 23 years old. He came to play baseball, and I just need to let him do his thing and stay out of his way.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little bit of that. And long term athletic development, we talked about it all the time at Elon, but there's a couple things that influence the draft. Number one, you have to be 21 years old to be draft eligible, and number two, or being a third year in college or a junior. So if you're 21 and you're a sophomore, you're draft eligible. If you hit 320, see it, buddy. You're not coming back for your third year. So you're only going to spend 2 years in college because you were 21. And a lot of these kids reclass in high school. So they'll reclass in high school. They'll do 5 years of high school. So they will be 21 when they're a sophomore, and you only have them for 2 years. And so there's a little bit of, I need to get you ready now. But, I also believe in the holistic athlete. Very, very, very simple, holistic athlete. If you're a force dominant athlete, let's give you qualities that you're not good at to try and balance it out. Like let's make you an athlete. At the end of the day, that's going to help you become the most successful on the field. In whatever capacity that is. The sport requires a multitude of qualities, and so we're trying to balance those out a little bit.
Okay.
So, French, I don't know if you see some of that stuff in terms of like long-term athletic development. Like you might only have guys for a year, right? Or
Yeah, that's a really good question because with the guys I'm working with, 16, 17, 18, like probably the oldest guy we have here is like 20, 21. Majority of the guys are 17 or 18. I'm not sure. I can't think off the top of my head the average like duration of like a minor league like career, but I know it's less than like 2 years. So like, and the most years a guy can play down here is 4. And usually after year 2, you've kind of gotten a grasp on if they're going to call them up or, I'd say if the people that probably end up making the big leagues are here for a year, for the most part. First 2 years, if you don't get out of here in first 2 years, it's like, okay, it's a lot less likely, I would say. So like, it puts you in a tough spot because these guys are very foundational from just like a physical capacity perspective. So like, your first thought is to follow that kind of LTAD model because that's probably what's best for them. But you also have in the back of your head that like, okay, like they need to be good like soon enough that they get called up so that their career keeps going. So it's a kind of a push and pull there. And I think luckily it's different because the Cubs have, I don't know, 200 plus people working for them. So it's a lot bigger organism. And I think the people luckily that are, I mean, I'm not like involved in those decisions of like who gets called up. Very like maybe a very small part. I'll give input on what I know from like our domain, but like they know like some guys, it's like, okay, I see this, and if they improve this, maybe if we extend their timeline out a little bit more, then they'll be good enough to bring them up to Arizona or something like that. But it's tough because like you need them to progress at a pace that maybe they're not progressing at because the next year you're going to have a whole new signing class. And with that means that you're going to need to release a certain amount of people because we have a roster limit down here just like they do in the States. And you see it every year with the draft. Draft guys come in, X amount of guys have to get released, unfortunately. Whether, and not to say that that's it for them. They can get picked up in free agency, but it's tough. Very rarely have I, from my experience down here, have I worked with a guy where it's like, okay, like he's like ready to be on more of like an advanced type of program. and then to build off like the holistic athlete, I think I believe in that more down here than probably than anywhere else because these guys specialize so young. They just play baseball. Like that's everything to them. That's everything in, DR, Venezuela. Like they specialize very young, you know. So they might look good on the field, but then you have them do like a simple A skip and you're like, "Holy shit, like they look like a newborn deer." And it's kind of like, "Wow," but it's also like, "Oh, like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here." Like he's this good at baseball and he's like this uncoordinated when I ask him to do something like a simple task like that. Okay, like I got a chance to like make a pretty big impact while not doing very complicated stuff and like make him that much better. So it's I don't think I have the right answer. I'm not even sure that there is one, but it's it's difficult, man. I mean, I think the with the transfer portal in college, it's becoming more like a pro setting because people are getting money. They're there, they can choose like, oh, I don't want to play for this team. It's kind of like a pro like a big league guy like, oh, I want to trade and I'm good enough that I have leverage. These players that are good enough, they have that leverage. They're like, oh, no, this school is going to give me more money, or this school is like, I'm a starter for sure. I don't have to split time with this guy, or oh, I'm going to have these type of benefits, or oh, I just want to like, I don't like the weather here that much. I want to go to a school in Florida or Texas where it's like it's it's wild, man. And like you said, the dynamic is shifting. It's more of like on an even level as opposed to like the coach kind of being that default superior, if that's even the right word. And I think luckily down here it's not as much like that. Obviously, like you have your guys that like get the big signing bonuses, but for the most part, um, they're kids. They're gonna listen to you. They're gonna want help. I think probably at the higher levels, from what I've heard, and if I just had to kind of speculate, not from experience, that can be a little bit more of a challenge. But I think it comes back to relationships in that regard, and I think that's kind of where pro sports gets a lot of flack. It's like, oh, like they can just tell you to fuck off. Like they don't have to listen to you. And it's like, okay, yeah, true. But I would argue if you look at it that way, like that's kind of part of the challenge. Like that's part of the challenge of it. And I think that's probably going to be more. I don't know if you've like realized that or if anyone's dealing with that in college where it's like, oh, like the kid's like, okay, like I'm only here for a year and I'm here to do one thing. Like, what are you going to tell me? I mean, I'm sure I don't know, it's a crazy time for college sports for sure. And I think I don't know, it's already shaking stuff up, and I'm sure it's gonna. I don't know if they're gonna like put a cap on this to kind of rein it in, but
Yeah, you have guys sitting out of practices because they're in contract negotiations.
yeah, that's wild. That's wild. It's like a guy that's like sitting out of spring training or like won't report to camp like at a pro
Right.
org. It's
Yeah.
wild.
It's crazy because in at the pro level, French, if someone doesn't show up to something or
You get
they
fined.
oh fined, you go in your locker and you have a $5 to $10 to $15,000 uh, bill in your locker.
Right.
Who was it? Somebody, I think it's Syracuse. Syracuse instituted that for their football team. If they see
Where
you walk, yeah, if they see you walking and you don't have like your playbook with you during like actual season, it's a $50 fine. And they just keep collecting fine. If you miss weigh-ins, and it's like they have 3 weigh-ins, they do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can miss Monday and Wednesday, but Friday is because those are like your check-ins to your official weigh-in on Friday. If you miss your weigh-in on Friday, it's like $1,000 fine for these college kids. So I get like there was a player that was talking about this, and it was like, hey, so you got guys who are like pounding food in the cafeteria. We have guys who are trying to be in a sweatsuit to make sure that they're within their weight. So while there is so much more change than shifted towards the players, I think there's some schools and some organizations that have handled it more like and said, hey, let's embrace that pro style to where it's like we may not have the power to be like, okay, well, you're not going to play because they might leave somewhere else. But what we'll do is we'll shift the power from a penalty of you're going to sit for a practice or you're going to have extra conditioning to being, well, the money is what you want. We're going to cost that money when you don't do the structural or procedural things that are correct, right? So if you miss a practice and you're late, fine, $500. You don't go to class, $500. You miss your weight, $1,000. Stuff like that. I think it's a really creative way, even though it seems so like odd, even though it's the same format that's already been written. You're just applying that playbook per se from the highest level down to the lowest. I don't want to say the lowest level, but the current level of everyone's trying to figure out what the hell to do in college when all this money is now being dispersed, and they're like, there's nothing to do. All right, well, now it becomes less about what you can offer them versus like the experience that they have at the entire school. If it kind of equates a lot of things where it's like UVA, if we just look at say like UVA to Duke, right? It's just a good example to pull out, right? The money may be very similar that they can offer to a baseball player, right? But at this point, what does UVA offer more than Duke, right? They might offer a better athletic development program to help you push that system and get you to the pro guys, right? They may offer a better situation for you to be close to the facility and not have to travel in traffic, right? Whereas Duke may have, maybe it's a better cafeteria, so your nutrition quality might be better. You got to bring all that other stuff that may have necessarily been like support staff or just general support areas that got pushed off to the side. Those become a little bit more important if you reframe it that way. And I think you're going to see a lot of good programs utilize those things in order to land those recruits and then manage those recruits in that aspect as well once they get on the campus as their players. Hey, we have a state-of-the-art nutritionist, but you're not making weight, which means you probably haven't checked in with them. From now on, if you don't make weight on Friday, you're gonna get fined. And just obviously don't just set the bar at $1,000 because someone might be on $1,000 NIL deal, but like it'll be say like 0.5% of your contract of whatever your NIL deal is. That's what you're gonna pay when you don't make weight. Hey, we have the best academics that can be offered in the NCAA. Great. Why are you missing class? I thought you wanted a pinnacle education. Well, if you're missing class, 1% of your NIL deal. That's a fine. Stuff like that, I think, will be like an equalizer, kind of leveling the playing field to where you get a little bit less of, like you said, French, of the fuck you, I'll do whatever I want, and I'm going to go wherever I want, and I'm here for a year. What are you going to tell me? Right? That stuff gets people bought back into the, fours up on this one, accountability, but it's about me, not the team, right? You can use those to swing that back. At least, everyone can be in that for themselves. I get it. Employment's a single player game, and that's part of what this is at this point for these athletes. But if you want to like win championships, I'll tell you what, more players probably get drafted from a championship team than anybody else. Am I correct or incorrect?
Correct.
If we took the average players on a championship team and compared that to an average team not winning a championship, other than your weird outliers who are phenomenal players, you're going to see more players drafted from that team because they had a longer season, they got more exposure, and it's true that they're kind of bought in on that, like that winning philosophy. You're going to be able to get higher draft picks. Cool. You want to go to the MLB? We got to do that. We got to go to Omaha and we got to win.
Do you go ahead, French?
No, I think and you're seeing I don't know if this was happening before and I just wasn't aware of it, but teams are hiring, college teams are hiring GMs. Have you noticed that? Football teams, GMs, basketball teams, it's sick. Just getting closer and closer. Shaq's the GM for Sac State basketball now. Andrew Luck's the football GM at Stanford. That's just it's just going to turn into pro sports essentially.
Do you think the high school goes this direction?
I think we've already seen it in some sports. In all reality,
that's crazy.
Especially within the sport of track and field, and not to
really
bring it back to this realm, but a lot of track and field athletes in the high school, New Balance has done a really good job of securing NIL deals on high level high school kids. So what's really crazy is you'll start to see some of these people or some of these athletes come through, and the school may have a uniform sponsorship with Nike, but they'll be wearing New Balance spikes or so on. A great example is Kalen Walker, that legendary Iowa sprinter. They're sponsored by Nike. He races in Adidas spikes. We've started to see some of this stuff change on that landscape when money gets involved in the NIL stuff, that they can't interfere with the brand. it's just a lot more to handle from, I guess, like the administration side of like, well, our brand deal technically is with Nike, but this kid's got a brand deal himself or herself with Adidas, with Under Armour, with New Balance, whatever it is, Asics. We need to like allow that to happen because it does that infringe, right? And in that gray area, that's where like brands and products, whether in this case for shoe sponsorships, New Balance said, hey, before these guys even step foot on a college campus, we're going to give them an NIL deal. Because if they go, and for them, they're like, I can offer them 50 grand. 50 grand to a high schooler is a lot of money. They go to the first year in college and they're running in New Balance spikes. All of a sudden they go to the, maybe a national meet and people start to see this phenom, and that phenom chose to wear New Balances, right? So it's a great marketing idea, and it started to really influence a lot of stuff, on these senior years in high schools. And then you see some other people who are like, well, maybe I'll transfer, maybe I'll do this, right, etc. Quincy Wilson has, he's a 45-second 400-meter runner as a high schooler. He's got his brand deal. He hasn't even stepped foot on a college campus. I don't even know if he's considering it anymore, right? Do people start foregoing colleges to run on a pro circuit instead? All that stuff is going to play parts.
Oh my gosh. I've seen tweets of people like verbally committing to something high school, and you're like, what?
Yeah, but they'll do that because that high school may be larger. Maybe in, you look at like a California school, they're in like the first division for the CIF, kind of like championships, interscholastic leagues, and they'll transfer there to race against better competition because those better competition schools or the larger schools, they have, their track meets are televised and they want to be able to get on TV to get that brand deal. So they'll commit to, right on that. And that's where it becomes more of like, is this a government interference thing where they have to divide the county lines or the city lines or whatever of like, you can't transfer. There's always going to be a way around it, but I think it's just going to create something weird.
They're getting graphics made and stuff. Like they're committing to play football at Alabama.
These guys there was one kid like 8 months ago, and he was basically telling everybody he's a free agent because he's going to go play for another Pop Warner team. That stuff happens like, this is crazy. And I was like, what are we doing, man? I thought like it used to play Pop Warner for the love of the game. These guys are like, I'm going where the money is.
God. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
God, that's wild.
It's changing. It's changing. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, guys. It's changing the approach. It's changing how you coach athletes. It's changing how, but I will also say the best coaches are the ones that are willing to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's coaches out there who, that may be stuck in their ways per se, and they don't want to adapt to the times.
It will phase them out.
It'll phase them out, but you have to be humble enough and you have to check your ego, and you have to just say, listen, this is the way that it's going. It's going that way with or without me. Yeah. And I got to adapt with it.
I think French lost power. We'll get him. This is why you guys got to subscribe. This way we can get to 500 subscribers. That's our next goal. We need ad money to keep French's lights on.
Does this happen before?
This has happened like 4 or 5 times now. Come on, guys. You guys got to buy some shirts or something, man. We don't make that much off of shirts, so we need the volume to increase.
Oh my gosh. French's power went out.
I think this is a good time to kind of shift to some more fun questions here. I do this one. This is one that I've had in the back of my mind, but I think you're going to be one of the only people I can get to answer this. I've asked so many people.
French, you're back.
I'm just used to it at this point.
It's like we just plugged the. Oh no, we lost him.
It's all right. He's just coming back in here. But I do have a question. Why do pitchers, when they're on the mound, for anyone listening and not watching the video, which
I'm just
on Spotify and on
it's
YouTube,
not even like a big deal for me at this point. Like,
but why do pitchers cock their
like I just switched to the old iPhone hotspot. Like I know it's going to happen at some point,
they got their
and
hat
that's
like
just
this.
It's just a routine.
I've asked Kel, I've asked French, I've asked other baseball guys. I'm like, why am I always seeing a pitcher with a cockeyed hat?
Okay, so it's. Well, I know the pitchers. The pitchers in the dugout do it for rally. It's a rally thing.
Okay.
Cock the hat to the side. It's a rally thing. If you're on the mound, what you're talking about on the mound, the only thing I could think of is to seem like you're a demonic presence on the mound that is just going to intimidate the batter. I don't know why else you would do that.
Because I've also, I know the rule, like you can't like lick your fingers and then touch the ball. It's a foreign substance. So I thought maybe like that's the way Kel kind of proposes. Is like honestly, it's probably them when they wipe it off. It just ends up getting like cocked to the side as they do this like 1,000 times.
I don't know because that would bother me if you can feel
when your hat, I feel it. Like I can feel the brim hanging off. Like I feel like it would
feel
throw
when
me
the
off balance.
brim is off to the side.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I can say is intimidation factor, but like if you're the batter, you're looking at the pitcher like, look at this guy.
Either that or everyone's just like a really big like Fall Out Boy fan and they're just on the mound. We're going down.
So that's what I don't get, Brian. I don't understand it. I do know that pitchers in the dugout, rally time.
Okay.
Rally time.
I had this one too. So I mean, we're just gonna take the opportunity. We're gonna go fun questions here. I want to see you giggle. I want to see that laugh. I want to see the deep inhale on your laughs when we get that. But you're about to lift for yourself. We all know this guy's hairy, but he's diced. So you're about to go for a big lift. What are you throwing on the radio? What gets you in the mood?
What is getting me in the mood? First of all, who am I lifting with?
Okay.
Am I lifting with you?
Yeah, you're lifting with me.
Okay.
Me and French, we're right there. We're on the racks right beside you. What are you throwing on that? What's going on the speaker?
I mean, you could put Sum 41. You could put Machine Gun Kelly, Blink 182, 9 Days, All Time Low. You know our playlist back at Elon.
I feel like if you're going for a big squat or a big bench, there's one song that we're throwing on the radio. I'm putting it on for you, and it's "The Boys of Summer."
The Boys of Summer.
The cover by the Ataris. Great song, but man, I've never seen that band just. It's like waking up a sleeper cell.
I know.
He hears that, he's like,
Boys of Summer. Driving around Burlington in the car with you, windows down.
Windows down.
Boys of Summer going on. Also, Meet You There by Busted Deep.
Oh, incredible. I love it. Every time I hear that song for the listeners, I would screenshot it every time it came up on my phone, and I'd send it to Andrew, and I'm just like, hey, man, just thinking about you.
The boys. That's the boys.
That's real brotherhood. Real brotherhood.
The boys. French, before we continue, just know that we plugged the brand. We're trying to get more T-shirts bought so we can pay for your electricity.
It's all good, bro. I don't think that's a money issue. That's just living in a third world country type of issue.
It's definitely a money issue. Everyone needs to go buy more shirts from us. It's definitely a money issue.
Definitely a money issue. Go buy more shirts.
Subscribe and help us get ad revenue and buy more shirts.
Give me money.
Andrew, this is another good one too, but we like to ask this one to a lot of our guests, and I think it's really fun just hearing the different perspectives. But like, what is like a gripe that you have with the industry? Like, what's currently wrong with S&C? Yeah, scratch that brain.
Yeah, it's a hard one. What's wrong with the industry is, I mean, I have an easy answer, but it's like I don't want to give it. It's just like the one I was gonna say was time spent in the facility is not time productive. Like, I wanted to allude to this at the very beginning of the podcast when we were talking about learning from your mentors. And one thing that I learned from Nick DeMarco is you can be the most successful director in the country, which
Power's
he
out
ate.
again.
See you, French. You can be the most successful director in the country, which he is one of the most successful directors in the country, and you can spend time with your family. You can have a life. You can do things outside of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think your identity needs to be in that. That would probably be the biggest thing. Is you don't have to. Your identity is not in your job, and it's not because of the amount of time you spend in there. Like I can program. This is a crazy thought. I can program from my house, and I don't have to be in a facility.
No.
So, I don't know. I just think that's something that I have admired about the Elon crew and Nick DeMarco especially, because I mean, shoot, there was Nick sold me when he was when he was interviewing me, was like, hey man, like come and go when you want, just make sure that the head coaches are happy, like. And then we ended up being there 15 hours a day because we were all boys with each other, but like he wasn't there. He was there for, I don't know, 4 hours a day on football training days, and that's like how it should. He did his work, and if there were meetings he had to go to, he was there, but he wasn't there excessively. And you know, that's
Kind of
something.
speaks to the longevity.
Yeah, 100%. Because it is a great industry, but it's so easy to. How many times, guys, do you see coaches that are like 27, 28 that are going to do different things
All the time.
all the
Yeah,
time?
frequently.
And so it just, that's how you be in the field longer, is don't make it your identity, and get out of the office and go do something, you know. So
Hit a couple balls with the boys.
yeah. Yeah, hitting the 7-iron. The 7-iron, Brian's favorite club. Oh my god, French. We went to the driving range when we were at Elon. and you have all my clubs are in my bag. And Brian grabs the blue stick. They call it a training club.
Yeah, the one that's bendy.
It's a bendy.
I think I have a video of you hitting that. I think I had the privilege one time.
The club is made for tempo, of like rhythm and all that stuff. It's a very hard club to hit. And Brian doesn't play golf all that much. And he grabs his club and he starts ripping these balls like 200 yards. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, that's not how that club, like, I was expecting him to like snap hook it to the right or to the left or miss the ball. Oh no. Brian's hitting absolute missiles out into the abyss with this club. And you're like,
Horsepower, baby.
How does that happen?
Just straight horsepower. It's all in the hips.
So, yes, that was awesome. That was freaking awesome.
I guess that leads to another good question. Right. I want you to take me through every stop you've had in your career, and I want you to give me the best memory at every stop. Right? What really stuck out at each of those places that just made it that like magical, memorable moment for you?
Yeah, when I was at Villanova, we were at Coach Tucker's house. We were in the backyard, and he had the whole staff over. Coach Michael Tucker, he had the staff over, and he grilled every meat possible, and we ate it. And it was like steaks and sausage and chicken and different kinds of ribs, and he just cooked all of this stuff on the grill, and he just, hey, take your pick, get whatever you want. And it was a summer night, and the staff was there, and he was just cooking on the grill. He was making food, and we were just eating a bunch of different like steaks and chicken and sausage and hot sausage and sweet sausage, and like it was crazy. It was awesome.
That's really fixated on the sausage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Really into that sausage, Andrew.
And then when I was at Millersville, it was when it probably was the same. My boss my mentor, he's now a friend, Kyle Regensburg. When I was at Millersville, he is big into smoking food, and so for the
Smoked
first,
sausages and other sausages.
Bratwurst.
oh, he made me a smoked brisket, and it was the best brisket I ever had. That was probably, this is all revolved around food. Can you tell? Sausage particularly. um, when I was at TCU, it was my favorite memory was going on the boat on the lake.
And Zach brought out sausages.
Lake, it was Lake Worth. We went out. He had a boat, and so there were some times when we were at TCU, he'd bring us out on the boat, and we would spend the whole day there, and we would hang out in the water, and we'd go on the boat and play games and stuff. It was awesome. And then at Elon, it was like a particular memory of mine. Just like being in the office and just absolutely laughing until I couldn't breathe. That was probably the thing that I remember of Elon the most. It had nothing to do with like of course Ferraras, like that was a staple. Like the football coaches would come in the office and talk to us about Ferraras and like what we liked when we got there. But like the thing that I remember the most was like just laughing until I couldn't breathe in the office. If we were eating, like just like I've never laughed more than in that year, uncontrollably. You heard the big inhale. When he takes a breath. So that was my favorite memory, for sure. And so that's on the stops. The stops.
What's so far about UVA? Like, what's that like really good memory?
Professionally, it was going to Omaha, going to the College World Series. Like that was something that when I was 26 years old, I'll forever be able to say that I was 26 years old as the strength and conditioning coach on a team that went to Omaha, and that was pretty cool. And it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but just the fact that I am able to have that experience because it's something that I'll be able to use as a lesson for the rest of my life. So
seat at the table.
So,
French, you got any fun ones for Andrew?
I want to ask, is there like a certain skill that you think will be like really important in the field of performance in like the next 5 to 10 years that is kind of either not on the radar now or is just kind of like peeking its head? And like, especially in baseball, you know, you mentioned we were talking about force plates earlier. I'd say baseball is probably the most analytics driven sport that I know of, at least. So big into like all the data, this and that, whether it's force plate mounds, Kinetrax, all that stuff. Is there a certain skill that like you think is going to be more important for performance coaches to have to adapt to? And do you think that the data goes too far to some extent in baseball?
I think the thing I don't know if this is going to answer your question here, Frenchie, but I think the thing that we're going to see the most is
making sausage.
Yeah.
Get started.
We have a guy on the podcast right now that's breaking the door for this. He's a performance coach, strength and conditioning coach that is also a skill coach. And that is something that I think is going to become way more popular in the next 5 to 10 years. Brian is doing it and breaking down doors doing it. You see people, a little bit of people doing it. In like, I know Corey Schlesinger did it when he was with one of his teams. I forget particularly.
Texas, yeah.
Coach. And that was the only thing that I've ever. And then like Brian is skill and strength and conditioning and sports performance. And so that's something that I see coming more prominently because baseball is a skill dominant sport. And so the more knowledge you can have on the skill, the better it can affect the strength and conditioning side of things. That's number one. Number two, do I think data is too much? I think I'm so curious to see if we're going to loop it back around, because we started on the loop of no data, and then we're coming around on the loop of data driven. And I'm just curious on if it's going to come back. It's the same way of like, I don't want to get down the rabbit hole again of the NIL stuff, but is it ever going to come back? There's a saying that like everything that's happened previously will end up coming back into fruition.
Yep.
And
History
so
repeats itself.
history repeats itself. Will we ever go back into a college landscape of no NIL and just amateurism? Will we ever go back into a landscape in baseball and sports performance where there's no data? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that there are people who are too much on that spectrum, and it's about finding the balance. It's about finding the right balance of how much can you manipulate the data to affect your decision, but not too much.
Follow up on that first piece that you said. Do you think that you could essentially be a pathfinder for that first situation in the terms of baseball? Having an extensive use of baseball knowledge, especially as a pitcher, where you've already kind of dabbled in stuff like that, like at previous stops. Like I remember when you were at Elon, you had it very tight with the pitching coach, being able to converse with him about things like that. Do you think that you could forge a pathway for things like that at your level? Or do you think that that's possibly out of the question based off of the optics and things like that?
Yeah, I think at this level, I think it's really hard. I think because you have, that's not to say it can't be done, but there's a lot of, man, like there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to get trust to do that, especially when at this level, if you don't win, you're packing your bags. And so there's a lot of trust that goes into that. And so I like Brian, you give me too much credit in that sense. Yeah, I have knowledge about it, but it's always evolving. And I'm trying to adapt to the sports performance space first until I worry about the pitching space. I think it starts by being a pitcher. I think that's a good way to start because I have a foundational understanding of the mechanics and efficiencies and energy leakage of during a delivery, things of that nature. I think that's a good starting point. But there's so much. I mean, there's people whose their whole career is centered around pitching, and it'd almost be like imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? Who am I that's going to take on both? Like,
Don't you have that now?
it's such a complex thing.
Don't we all have that now?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have that now in terms of just the sports
I
performance.
know. Imagine two careers in one.
But to a certain extent, though, like, if you have that now at a lesser degree, or a lesser like responsibility, like what's the effect of adding the extra responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
And I would say like a pathway forward. And I did it a little bit differently, but along these lines, like through in the RTP stages, right? I think that's where a really good place if you were to try and forge that path, right? And try to be more integrated within their staff is like when you take on an RTP athlete, integrating them back into practice, right? Right. Everyone forgets, they think return to sport, return to competition, blah, 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 return to play. It's like you got to return to training, right? That's step one. We have to get them to train. And then from there, it's like how do we return them to practice? And then it's like, well, how do we return to sport and then return to perform? And being involved in all those steps, once it becomes less, okay, well, body structurally sound. If you stay integrated within that process and say, all right, well, now we can go through drills. Well, I want to run them through a couple pitching things. And I'm okay. Well, now that you see if like it's pitching, hey, I see where we might have some problems. Bring that coach in and say, hey, these are like X, Y, Z. This is what I'm starting to see. Do I have like some freedom to play with this? If you do, take it and run with it. And now this is a big gamble, and I understand that it's a gamble. But this is just me speaking from experience of like, this is how it kind of came to fruition for me of like, well, I know what it, like in this terms, it was a long jumper, right? Wanted to get them to be able to sprint. That's number one. Got to be able to sprint to be able to get on the runway. Great. Can they handle takeoffs? Well, great. Well, now I'm gonna take them through like 6 to 8 like pop ups in practice. Right. It's a little bit different when it comes to pitches. I understand that. And then it was okay. Well, cool. Now we can do that. I want to get them to take a full approach, and I want to be able to see if we can handle that. Great. Now we built up enough. We built up enough jumps and pop ups on a short approach and a long approach. I think we're about ready for a competition. I need to be able to know where they're at the board so we can successfully do this because it's a psychological thing for them, right? And then taking them through that like 6 to 8 week process. Lo and behold, I got lucky. Don't get me wrong. I got lucky where I was like monitoring and watching and coaching the athlete that she ended up breaking a school record. So it looks really great, right? Even if it doesn't happen that way, though, if you can demonstrate the foundational knowledge, like they may come back to you and say, there's a couple, like a good coach, like you said, is adaptable. They're probably going to come back to you and be like, there's a couple things that I saw. I want to learn from you. Well, great. Now you open up the door for the conversation of, well, why don't I come out while you guys have a pitching practice and I'll assist you right in that form. Maybe you're not leading it, but now you're integrated and you're working with them in the skill practice. I think that's a good way to do it. And hopefully you never have an RTP athlete that has to be rebuilt like that for sure. But I think if you're in that mindset for anyone that's listening and you start to see some of those things occur, that's a great way to hop in and start to get that integration process. Now for you,
love it.
When are you going to do it?
When am I going to do it?
Yeah.
Got me fired up to do it. It's hard. It's the other thing too is there's like the staffing at this level is crazy. You have like 5 GAs for different jobs, So there's a lot of steps but I mean it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. And that's Brian, that's a high performance model. Like you're able to affect the skill and the strength, in the stuff in the weight room, and that's a high performance model. Everyone's on the same page, but you are everyone.
Yeah. Now it's a little bit different too because in track and field, the sport is training itself, so it's a little bit less chaotic in that aspect. So I'm fully aware of the differences when it comes to a field or a court-based sport. But as you can slowly get more integrated, I think that there's an opportunity for someone with a lot, I will say, on average, now there's others, but someone with a lot more foundational knowledge within just scientific principles, loading parameters, angles, biomechanics, etc., to be able to work that way into the sport practice, which traditionally speaking has a little bit more of the old boys and girls club of, well, we did this before, we're going to do it again, right? Versus like, hey, let's kind of rework the wheel and make it less of a square and more of a circle so it's smoother. That's the way I kind of see it. But French, I know you had something that you wanted to kind of bring up.
No, I think you're going to see that as more of, I don't know if the norm, but like you mentioned the staffing at like a school like UVA. I think it's like even that or exacerbated at the pro level where you just have so much money and resources, and the orgs that are more aggressive and more like progressive, forward thinking, whatever you want to call it, you can just make a position and make it whatever you want. They're thinking outside the lines. It's not as rigid. I think you're starting to see a few of the orgs that are like more forward thinking that are getting positions like someone who has a background in strength and in skill. And you're seeing it in like the leading private facilities, especially in baseball. They usually, I'm thinking of Cressy. He trains guys and they have their whole pitching sector, and they do a lot of Tommy John return to play, and they do it really well from what I've heard. Driveline's another one. They have the skill, the strength, and those people are starting, they leave those jobs and they get and they're going to really good positions within pro teams. So I think that's kind of we're seeing the tip of that iceberg of setting that new standard. And it's going to be really interesting in the next 5 to 10 years is the buy-in to being a good coach or even a serviceable coach are you going to have to like know a baseline knowledge of like how to like impact skill acquisition as well as general physical qualities? Because like if we know one thing, it's like the people that are like trying to move the field forward and trying to be the best coaches they can are like they're obsessive, and like we talked about in the last episode, like they're a little messed up in the head. It's going to be, harder to stand out, and you're probably going to have to just keep adding more skills to your arsenal there. So I think it's going to be super interesting. And baseball's so unique because it is so skill driven. Like you're going to be able, like, I mean, if just thinking of it from like an employer standpoint, if you can have a guy that can do everything in the weight room, but they can also help out with pitching or hitting, that's a better value for you. And you have to hire, you get that in one person. I might as well pay that person more versus hiring two people, and probably I don't have to pay him twice as much. I can pay him 50% more. And like that's going to probably impact winning a little bit more because you have someone that can kind of move over and like to different domains and affect multiple domains. So
Well said.
It's more cohesive.
exactly. And it's super interesting. I think it's going to be, and you're seeing it too in like scouting. You're seeing people, there's a new kind of a thing I think some of the teams are starting to do or have been doing, performance scouting. You get someone with an S&C background that wants to get into scouting, that's like really good at taking, quality measurements, whether that's a CMJ or, just getting like quality data, and they can kind of assess physical qualities, but they also kind of learn a little bit about the skill to like, before you sign guys, okay, what's this guy's potential ceiling as like just a general athlete. So I think you're starting to see that in multiple domains within baseball. And, I don't know if it's like that in like football, basketball, like the higher levels, but I think it's just kind of the natural transition to like, okay, how can we get more out of one person instead of having to hire multiple people? I don't know.
I think that's a great way to kind of pitch it too. Is like, hey, I can qualify for two positions. I can save you guys money, right? And that's like a huge thing when you think of it about from an organizational standpoint. You lower insurance costs too, and if you not only for two employees because they have to think about benefits, retirement, insurances. If you get paid $50,000, it really costs whatever organization it is around 80 to 85 when you think about retirement, insurance, days off, whatever it is, etc. But the other aspect is too is if you pitch it not only from that standpoint, but to the standpoint of, hey, if we're more cohesive in the model, and I'm already taking dollars away from what you're spending to fill two positions, but now everything's under total control, then it's not going to be a split. We're likely to see a reduction in the number of injuries and the number of possible surgeries because everything's matched up. Now you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in a reduction of their insurance costs. Your premiums go down. You're not forking out money for maybe Tommy John surgeries as much, as an example, or, just UCL injuries, ACLs if you're in other court sports or field sports. If everything's matched up and it's done the right way, if I can save you guys two surgeries a year, we're going to save you a lot of money. So not only am I doing it from your employment perspective, but from the athlete's perspective too. Now, your medical standpoints, your costs are lower, which means that you have more dollars hanging out at the bottom. You can either pay me more, or we can then expand and get me an assistant. We can then take that and get better nutritional goals that we might want to take forward. If you're in like the college sector, we can use that for tech to then further development and continue to reduce costs. So it becomes like a much more systems-based approach when you're thinking about this in, hey, this is a really cool idea. It's not just about me, but this is the intrinsic value that I see that we can then give to the organization itself. Why don't we do that? At least try it for a year. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And obviously it comes down to, does the major stakeholders involved, do they support the idea? Can you back it up with enough data? And having someone who's willing to take a chance on it and do well with it, that's like one of the great things. Luckily, like we had a reduction in injuries this year. We only had like one real soft tissue injury, and it happened at the last meet of the season. But being a more cohesive model and everything kind of matching up on the days did help, which is it's less money. And at the end of the day, like, regardless of what anyone wants to believe or think, like, college athletics now, it is a business. And operating in the black instead of in the red is pretty important, especially when it's a non-revenue based sport where it's not making money. How do we save the amount of money that you have to spend every year, right? And then on the revenue side, when it comes to like baseball, basketball, football, stuff like that, it's like now it's a revenue based sport, but it costs a lot more too. So if I have more player availability to play in those big games and we go further in, we're probably going to make a little bit more money. And I'm going to reduce the amount that you cost. So now I'm really just separating that gap a ton. If you allow me to run with it and be that person, well, then I promise you, everyone's going to be a little bit happier when they see their end of year bonuses from what we have. And you're going to look, and then you sell it to them too, of like the idea of like, hey, you're going to look like a genius because I don't even care if you say that this is your idea. I just want to do it.
French, can you picture Brian being a director right now? Him
Bro.
selling and him.
I feel like he already is. I'm convinced. I'm sold.
Once he's a director, he's not a director until he hires the boys. Then he'll be a director.
That's right. No,
if I ever leave Team Builder and Elon, all I'm doing is I'm getting a job that just pays me very well, and I'm just hiring all my friends.
I can't wait. It's going to be electric. I don't even want a lot of money. I just want to be with my friends.
As a very money-driven guy, I've said it before. Yeah. It's like I would give up half my yearly earnings to bring all my friends under one roof one more time for a year.
As a very money-driven guy, I need this car in the parking lot. This car is going to be right next to it. It's going to be in a 3-bay car garage.
All I want is to bring my boys back. I want to make enough money to where I can just support their lives and they don't ever leave me again.
Just Brian's sugar babies.
I would be so happy. My dream is to have a 10-person house and all my boys just live with me.
Oh.
And Julio Jones is our private bartender. He doesn't get paid anything. He just wants to hang out with us.
Yeah, I just like you guys. You seem cool.
You guys seem really cool. I want to see what this is all about. We got Guy Fieri taking us to Flavortown every morning on the Blackstone. All right.
Well,
should we close this out?
Yeah.
Another banger of an episode, to say the least.
Let me just plug Bev Boys t-shirts again for for French's electricity. Just plug that real quick.
Do you want to plug any of your social medias or anything, Andrew? Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, Andrew Behnam 1 on Twitter and Instagram. ANDREW BEHNAM 1 is the Twitter and Instagram. Haven't posted on Instagram that much, but I'm going to be getting back on the saddle here.
Oh.
Sneak peek. Getting back on it.
I love how you put that. Back on the sausage saddle.
Oh my gosh.
Calm down, French. Yeah. Twitter, Instagram. That's where you can find me. So,
French, you want to give us a rating?
Yeah, we got, like I said, it's a very blast your socks off type of day. The caffeine content for down here, tough to beat it. The price is fair, a little over $2 a can. The flavor is all right, not great. Out of this drink, I'd say it's probably my favorite flavor, the Berry Blast. I'd say I'd give it like a DR like 8.6. If I'm in the States, it's probably like a 6.4.
Oh, there's an international ranking.
Yeah, man. Well, this is like the selection is very limited, so you gotta weight it. You gotta weight it. You can't treat them the same, obviously. Come on. It's like weight classes, you know?
Yeah. On the 3D strawberry lemonade, super good. First off, can, again, we've gone over this 1,000 times. I love the simplistic, like kind of mature look for this. It's very, very simple in both the can look, the taste, and the ingredients. You're just looking at 200 milligrams of caffeine. You can't beat that at $1.99 a can or $20 for a 12-pack. Unbeatable. Very light and refreshing. I'm going to go a super solid 8.1. Right. It could be a daily driver. Right now it is for me. I'm a big fan of the Ghost. I unfortunately was gonna rank the iced tea lemonade Ghost, and I crushed both cans. So I said, hey, I gotta go back. They didn't have it, so I bought a case of these. 8.1. It's so solid. The price is great. You want 200 milligrams of caffeine? I hope to see this in every gas station, right next to Monsters, because right now they're beating Monster in price. It's still zero sugar, and I just want to see it happen. But that's probably all we got for you guys. Definitely, we've mentioned a couple of times, but buy a t-shirt at bevboys.com. Follow us on Instagram at bevboys.tv. I am at BSZUTKOWSKI. That's B Shakusky on Instagram for Bev Boys clips, training content, as well as a couple fun Instagram stories the past couple of days. French can be found at
French_fit40. I think I'm still recording because I'm on my iPhone hotspot. That's the Instagram, French_fit40. Again, Bev Boys content, training content. Yeah, as always, appreciate everyone for watching. Check out the YouTubes, check out the website. Send this episode to a friend if you did enjoy it. But yeah, guys, I think that's all we got today.
If you guys, I think so. If you guys have anybody that you want to see on the podcast, definitely comment on our YouTube videos. Full video available on Spotify as well as the YouTubes. And give us a like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.
Deuces.